My name is Cherry and I write Angst. This is a new fic series that I'm starting of one of my other works called Fish in a Birdcage. Here's a summary. Todoroki Touya is dead. That's what he was supposed to say, but Shoto couldn't commit to this story when he could see him waving across the room. Guided by his older brother, Todoroki Shoto escapes Endeavour's grasp and finds a home in an unexpected place. This is Chapter 1. Todoroki Touya is dead. He's been officially marked dead for 3 years, and Shoto knew that perfectly well. He was 5 when Touya was first reported missing, and then he was 8 years old when Fuyumi and Natsuo had to tell him the truth, that the older brother he barely remembered would never be seen again. But he couldn't help but wonder if that was true, considering there was that same boy across the room trying to get his attention. Fuck it, he was the same boy. His hair was almost completely white, his piercing blue eyes sparkling with an otherworldly kind of mischief, and most importantly, his scars. From fingertips to forearms, his skin was entirely charred, stained a sickly purple color. The skin beneath his eyes were the same, though slightly healthier. His ears, neck, and probably most of his torso were purple, the scarred skin barely visible beneath his large white t-shirt. His face was covered in staples, and he had confirmed they were staples and not just strange piercings like he'd first hoped. His skin was stapled together. Just looking at his eyes made Shoto shiver. His legs were covered in dark jeans and boots, but Shoto guessed they weren't safe from the scars either. Shoto sat at the main table, quietly trying to finish a written test Endeavour had set for him. It wasn't difficult by any means. It was only a tool to keep Shoto away from the training room so he could prepare for some new kind of hell for the boy. However, he only struggled to complete the exam due to a certain teen still trying to get his attention. "Hey," he hissed, causing Shoto to snap his head up. Curiously, he tilted his head at the teen. He mimicked the posture. Shoto shrugged and looked back down, trying not to entertain the idea of talking to the stranger. Though he wasn't in any mainstream school, he understood the basics of self-preservation, and that included ignoring strange boys in your home. The teen huffed from across the room, silently landing on the tatami floors and walking over to Shoto, his steps heavy with agitation, but almost completely silent. He flopped down next to him and stared. His ice-cold glare was enough to make Shoto sweat, but he didn't show any sign of fear towards the strange teen. "So I'm getting the silent treatment now," the teen whispered harshly, never taking his eyes off the boy. He shrugged, grabbing a spare napkin and scratching the lead across it. It was something he picked up during practice tests as a way to discreetly relieve stress, though he wouldn't dare do it on actual papers, or in front of his father. Kami knows what he would do if he knew of Shoto's objectively harmless habits. The teen rolled his eyes dramatically and slouched across the table, his arms lightly obscuring the test Shoto was working on. "Don't do that," he hissed, growing more annoyed. He wasn't sure why, but the presence of this boy irked him in a way that he'd never felt before. At least, that he could remember. "Oh, I see. So I'm trying to be civil, and I get nothing. But when I'm a little shit, that's how I get you." The teen smirked, his charred lips quirking up in a manner that looked almost painful. His smug aura rubbed off on Shoto little by little. Eventually, he placed his pencil on the desk and turned to the boy, making exaggerated movements to show how fed up he was. "I'm listening," Shoto started, waiting for the teen to start talking. "Let's get the intro out of the way, because I'm almost certain you've given me a shitty nickname already. Just call me Touya," Shoto whispered. The teen froze, half raised a handshake. "Well, yeah, I guess." Touya looked uncomfortable at the realization that Shoto immediately knew who he was. Not that he tried to hide it, but it was a little unsettling. Shoto reached the rest of the way over and grabbed his brother's hand, giving it a few firm shakes. He was beyond confused at how easily their hands connected. He expected his hand to phase through, or for Touya to disappear the second he moved to touch his. But no, their hands interlocked and Touya curled his fingers around Shoto's wrists, giving him a shake in return. "So, this place is really fucking boring. What do you do all day?" Shoto sighed quietly. He did want to answer the question, he just wasn't sure how to describe it. He didn't know what it was, but there was something he could say. Something he had to say. Maybe Touya would understand. Maybe Touya would help. Has Touya seen my training? Could he... Earth to Shoto. Touya clicked his fingers, rudely startling the heterochromatic boy from his thoughts. Rude. he stated, glaring at the teen. I was just thinking. Maybe, but you're thinking too hard. It's not that deep. His tone seemed light, but his words felt heavy. Both him and Shoto could feel the sarcasm in his words, and he cringed at the sudden openness. Look, I'm sorry. You've seen me around. You know I've seen some wild shit in here lately. I shouldn't beat around it, but it's just weird, I guess. Talking to you about stuff that I've seen from your perspective and as an outsider. He put outsider in air quotes, heavily implying some kind of distaste. Did he know what Endeavour did to him? How horrible his training was? Did Touya see it? Did Touya experience it? Do you know about Endeavour's training? Shoto asked, his eyes darting around the room quickly as he kept his head lowered. Touya chuckled, the sound growing sadder. Yeah, I know. He's done some pretty messed up stuff to you lately. Fucking Quirk training my ass. The scarred boy's legs began to bounce as his face scrunched up, clearly irritated by the mention of his father. The young boy started. Did he train you too? Touya looked at him, his face suddenly blank. His eyes grew spacey and he stared past Shoto, and when he spoke again he was so quiet and small that Shoto almost didn't catch the reply. Yeah, and each day ended just like yours. He sighed and stood, covering his face while he backed into the corner he was in before. Shoto sat straighter, eyebrow cocked in interest. This kid might actually be able to help him if he's gone through this before. But why? For every answer, more questions resurfaced. Why was this ghost, assuming Touya was, in fact, a ghost, haunting the Todoroki house? Is he haunting Endeavour? Did Endeavour kill this kid? The last question made him pause. Shoto often thought at his lowest points that any more of his father's intense workout routine and sparring matches would have killed him before he hit the double digits, and maybe he wasn't that far off. Maybe Touya was worked to the bone, and their father had to change it up to not completely destroy Shoto. That being said, if it was ever changed, it didn't mean anything, because he felt like death after every session. He left the gym barely able to stand, bruised to high hell with lungs gasping for any kind of air. His stomach lurched at the memories, and he grasped his middle quickly while stumbling to catch his balance. He hadn't even realized he was standing until Touya caught his arm, keeping him steady. Whoa, now. Can't have you passing out on me, little brother. I can only do so much nowadays, and CPR is barely one of them. He chuckled, helping Shoto sit and regain the feeling in his legs. The ghost wandered around, pretending to look busy in the kitchen while Shoto's thoughts ran wild again. He started, but stopped as a door opened and the deliberate footsteps of his father travelled down the hall towards him. Touya gasped, the sound mixed with emotions that Shoto didn't have time to dissect. He wasn't panicking. Definitely not. He was as neutral as could be, but he still took a few deep breaths just to be safe. Shoto, my boy, let's begin today's training, Endeavour said, then turned back to the gym as quickly as he came. Shoto could hear his ghostly brother growl behind him, and he couldn't help but nod. He stood, quickly deciding that the questioning of Touya could wait, and hurried into the training room, not entirely prepared for what was to come, but ready enough to survive the closing door. That's the end of Chapter 1. Hopefully you liked that. Chapter 2, and so on, is next. Thank you very much for listening.